within 5 or 6 weeks of my positive Lyme test, we started working together, which is fast for someone like, I like literally like admittedly laughed at like life coaches. If you don't understand it, I thought you certainly needed a PhD in like psychotherapy and all the things, because I come from a scientific background, and you were my like foot in the door, and I was like, what? Like, why have I been judging this so hard? Like, this is life-changing work.
Life coach, right?
I know. You were just the biggest blessing because you showed me potential with it. And then I kind of just took it and ran with it and kept going. And so here we are 3 years later.
Welcome to the Life is a Healing Journey podcast by yours truly, Anuschka, with a C. This podcast explores how you can create a true healthy lifestyle and live your life to the fullest in the face of any circumstance by healing and balancing your mind, body, spirit. If you are someone that's been dealing with disharmony in any area of your life and you are committed to seeking harmony, this podcast is for you. Let's start healing. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Life is a Healing Journey podcast. On today's podcast, we have a guest, Alayna BELLQUIST, who was born and raised on Vancouver Island, surrounded by temperature rainforests. Since she was very little, her life has been focused on nature and animals. She had been an avid horseback rider since she was 10 years old and has worked as a fisheries biologist for nearly 20 years. She got her graduate degree in Marine Biodiversity and Conservation from Scripps Institution of Oceanography at UCSD. In 2020, she became bedridden with Lyme disease after being bitten by a tick in San Diego in 2017 while riding horse. And she has spent the last 3.5 years curing her chronic Lyme using alternative and conventional medicine, mental health, and lots of nature. She uses what she knew as a biologist to heal and has now written a book about her journey to help others as well that are dealing with Lyme. And it was back in 2021, which I can't believe it's been 3 years, where I had the pleasure of meeting Alayna, and who found me online, and we started working together back in January. So it's literally been a little over 3 years since we met. So welcome, Alayna. Is there anything else that you'd like to share that I did not share, that I missed?
No, I am blown away that it's been 3 years. And how different I was. Like, I was just so fragile and so scared. So it's just really, like I was saying, it's pretty full circle. It feels really surreal and amazing. So, but thank you for the.
Oh my gosh. And your energy is so different than when I first met you, even from like you just glow. Whereas I remember before it was very rigid and very much, you were so structured. And you might still have that structure.
You were the first one who told me I had masculine like energy. And I was like, no, I like sparkles and ponies. And baking bread. I think you've missed the mark. And now I look back, I'm like, oh yeah, I was so rigid, so organized, so action oriented.
Mm-hmm.
So it's so crazy to hear you say that, because I still think I'm the same, but very like validating to hear that you see a change.
Oh, absolutely. I feel it. I see it. And there's nothing, because I still am a planner and all that. I bet now you have the balance though.
Yes.
You recognize.
Yes.
When it's time
to lean heavy on the masculine energy. I'm still very much like, I lead with organization and to-do lists, but I do force myself to like sit on the earth and like breathe.
Yes. And take the break when your body's like, hello, no more. Yeah. Well, so let's talk about that. What was that? Share more. I mean, this is the incident that woke you out of that autopilot life, right? Because that's how you were living. It was constant autopilot. So please share more about your experience and what all you went through. And
yeah, so you know my story well. It's in a nutshell, I was really praised by society for the way I was living. I was like 50-hour work weeks and traveling several times a month, and just like truly never enough time in the day to accomplish all of the things I needed to do. But I pushed and pushed and pushed and had like quite an overachieving like outlook on life, and thought that the more I did, the more people would approve of me. And society kind of does tell you that and reward that. So I was living like that pretty classic chaotic type life. And then I was bitten by a tick riding horses in 2017, which if this was a Lyme podcast, we could get into all that, but I don't think that's the point of this. Like, if people want to know about the bite and how I responded, reach out to me. But yeah, so I was bitten and then ignored symptoms for 3 years because I was too darn busy. It was a very busy life to lead. So I ignored my body whispering at me and getting louder and louder and louder. And then 2020, I became so unbearably sick, which was such a deviation from the way I was, because I was a person who never stopped moving. And yeah, so I was bedridden for about a year. I reached out to you in like weeks after I was diagnosed. I was just crippled with fear. I was absolutely convinced my life was over. I was terrified. I knew nothing really about Lyme. I didn't know anyone personally with Lyme. I looked to like celebrities who had it. That was like, and then the internet is such a confusing, messy place when it comes to Lyme disease. Western medicine can be very dismissive and cruel to Lyme patients, essentially. So within a few weeks of my diagnosis, I was so desperate. I did something that was so out of character for me. I called a psychic, which I'd never done in my life, because I've scientific training.
Not like you, yes.
Not like me at all, but I listened to that little like whisper, and I was like, well, and I like hid in our room, hid from my husband, and he's a scientist. And I was like, I'd rather die if he heard me talking to a psychic. And she basically said, you will get through this. But you have to address your things that happened in your past. And I was so angry at her at first. I was like, how dare she? I know. And then I listened to her, and I actually called her back a few times. And so then I realized, well, I don't know how to navigate that on my own. What does that mean? Look at your childhood, look at the things that happened in your past that shape who you are today and all the things that you're carrying with you. So then I reached out to you, and then, yeah, so you were a vital, irreplaceable part of my healing for those first 6 months when I was just a disaster physically and emotionally. I was just a disaster. So yeah, we worked together from like January.
Yeah, it started January, end of January of 2020.
Wow. Yeah, that was like
about 6 months.
So it was within 5 or 6 weeks of my positive Lyme test. We started working together, which is fast for someone like I like literally like admittedly laughed at like life coaches. Like, like if you don't understand it, I thought you certainly needed a PhD in like psychotherapy and all the things, because I come from a scientific background, and
yeah, of course.
And you were my like foot in the door. And I was like, what? Like, why have I been judging this so hard? Like, this is life-changing work.
Life coach, right?
I know. So yeah, you were just the biggest blessing, because you showed me the potential with it. And then I kind of just took it and ran with it and kept going. And so here we are 3 years later. But yeah, I mean, I speak exhaustively about healing from Lyme and all the physical stuff I did, which I never stopped. Like, also you being through a massive health crisis, you understand the physical stuff. I took the hardcore Western medicine, like you took, hardcore Western medicine, but I don't think I ever would have healed had I not reached out to people like you. And I actually think there's no way I would have healed if I hadn't done the mental piece. So
yeah, and so that was like I was gonna say, obviously behind me we see mind, body, spirit, right?
Yeah.
And so I know like one of the things was there was a lot of fear. So in terms of mindset, like
Yeah.
how do you see that you shifted from like that fear or whatever else that you had going on to like after the wake up, right? After that like awakening or rebirth or whatnot.
I mean, it has absolutely changed my outlook. Like like it has been like a paradigm shift for me. It has completely changed my outlook in life in every way. Sometimes I think it's almost just returned me to the way I was. Like I'm not a different person. I'm just the person I was before I experienced some pretty hard things in my childhood. And so I've always been nature oriented. I've always connected with like the earth and like I wasn't raised in a religious family at all. And I don't like really do that, but I think of it as like earth-based spirituality now. You know, I'm just so earth-based and I always have been. And so now I'm just leaning back into that, not in the structured way that I did as a working biologist, which is very different than sitting on the mossy forest floor and listening, you know. I never had time for that. And that was just like way too hippie for me, even though like really am like at my roots, that is like how I want to be. So yeah, my mindset shifted in every way. And I think it shifted back to the way that I was, but I just forgot. It's been decades. I got sick
it's
at
like
37.
your true self, right? That is really what the awakening rebirth is going back home to who you really are without all those layers of needing to prove yourself. Or in a sense, I remember you were also a little bit like it was a little bit, you didn't want to share too much because you didn't want to upset other people. Like that was a big part. You were not vulnerable.
Oh no. And like I mean, I was like when we met, there was like I mean, even in the 6 months, you like cracked open a little, but no, I mean, like I just sharing I cannot overstate how tight-lipped I have been my life, and not in like a secrecy, manipulative way, in a like petrified of being seen way. Like petrified of being
I also think like me, we both like I was the same where I was like, oh, if I'm seen in that way, then people are going to judge me as being weak or whatever.
Yeah.
Right. And I remember we had some of these conversations where you were afraid of that judgment too, because you're this strong woman. And it's like, that's going to make people look at me like I'm weak or whatever the thought process was before.
Yeah.
Right.
And remember when I got sick, the one time it cracked because it was too much. So when you get a chronic illness, or I'm sure I don't see this is when you had cancer, the first time you get sick on top of being so sick. And Lyle, my husband, woke up with a sore throat and I was like, this cannot be happening. I cannot withstand this. And I never wanted to bother you outside our calls. I didn't want to, I was so aware of not wanting to dump on you, even though you were begging me to like not dump, but you know, like.
Yeah, I was like, reach out in between the calls, which you finally did.
Which I did. And that day, I think Lyle was like, you need to call her right now. Like, you're going crazy. I just like the floodgates open and you were like, this is the best. It's like, I think I'm dying. But yeah. So it was such a blessing now. And like in the book, I write a whole chapter about that sickness on top of sickness, which is unbearable when you're already so
scary. I remember going through chemo. Everybody was, I was like, I cannot get sick. Like it was this, I never got sick. I'll say that.
Yeah.
Everyone around me got sick except for me. Anuschka got sick twice and I was able to not get sick, even though it was in between chemo cycles, because I was literally like putting onions everywhere. And I think these are some of the things I shared with you. I put onions at the bottom of my feet.
This is all in your socks and stuff. This is all coming back now. Yeah.
I was like, I refuse to get sick. So I totally get that. Because you just don't know how you're already feeling is like weak. And I know you have the body. And so we'll talk about that too, the body aches and all that. And then you're like, what's going to happen if I get sick on top of this? So it's like that fear of like the future, really. right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But regarding your body, I know you talked about some of the whispers, but yeah, please share, like, what were some of those symptoms that went from like the whisper to the scream, and how you were just like, oh my gosh, I can't take this anymore.
Yeah, Lyme can present itself. So it's a bacteria. It's one of the like most intelligent bacteria on the planet. It comes in 4 forms. Like it's like a spirochete, like a little like corkscrewy worm thing that can burrow into your brain and your joints. That's why it's so so good at evading medication. I think it's a little cube. So it comes in several different forms. So it's really good at resisting treatment. And it shows up in so many different ways for so many people. Like people call it the great imitator, because some people have like unbearable fatigue, and some people have like horrific neurological symptoms. And for me, I had just those years between the bite and being bedridden. There was 3 years. I had occasional body aches, which I wrote off as stress and age. I had some strange neurological things that I wrote off as stress. I had neuropathy, so numbing of my shin and my face. I wrote off as stress. I just thought everything was stress.
Which probably stressed, it made things worse and amplified whatever.
100%. Like there's a reason that a lot of people, my husband included, can get bit by ticks and don't get sick. Why do some people get so sick, and why do some people not? Right? I got bit once and I was bedridden. My husband has been an avid like hunter and hiker. Has been bitten many times, and he's like good to go because he's like the most relaxed person in the world.
Well, it's the autonomic nervous system, which I've talked about on this podcast before too, but it's like, yeah, when your body's in survival mode, your immune system is like non-existent.
Oh, my heart raced like every day, all day. And like I was just.
Well, yeah, I remember you had a lot of anxiety. That was like the whole thing. I remember
Which can also be really part of a very strong symptom of Lyme. And Lyme has many co-infections. I had many co-infections. Babesia is a Harris. I don't remember what it is. And it's a co-infection, and it has terrible anxiety as a side effect. So now I understand why I was rocking back and forth in bed at 2 a.m. saying, I'm losing my mind, I'm crazy. And I'm like, I wasn't like the crazy girl ever. I was always to like keep my stuff in order, not again. Lyle was just like, I don't recognize you. And I was like 3 a.m. I'm rocking around in bed saying, I'm losing my mind, I'm going insane, I'm crazy, I'm crazy. A lot of that probably was the babesia and the Lyme. But yeah, so, and then the body aches were just unrelenting. Every day felt like I had drank 3 bottles of wine or had the flu. That was just what every day felt like for years. Like when people would get COVID for 3 days and they'd be like, oh my God, I spent 3 days on the couch. I was like, I feel like that every day, all day for years. And so, yeah, but some people don't have body pain, and then they just have, they have all sorts of strange symptoms. I had, I still have a little bit of it, like your brain feels like it's vibrating and shaking, and it's just like super strange, right? It can be really strange. And yeah, they came in as whispers, and then they screamed at me October 2020. I had a really terrible riding accident. I sprained both my knees in September, and then in October I got the flu, and then I never got better. Like your body keeps it all in check, is like barely hanging on. And then it was like,
that's it. Last straw.
Last straw.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's when you keep ignoring, I mean, people in general, like I did for years, right? I was ignoring my headaches, and it just gets worse and worse and worse. And then new symptoms start happening. Like I started vomiting, and then I started losing sensation and all these things. And it was like, oh, I might just be getting migraines. Oh, maybe I'll cut out alcohol, and you don't think that, hey, let's take a look at this and see what's happening there, because you want to just keep pushing forward. And so that's one of the biggest things I always tell people. I'm like, hey, don't ignore those whispers, right? So it's like, now you know, right?
Absolutely. And the lessons just keep coming. Like all the things you read on the, like, when you're at Home Goods on like the cheesy, inspirational quotes. I'm like, oh my God, Lyme. Yep, Lyme taught me that one. Oh yeah, Lyme taught me that one. Like they're all there, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah. And again, because life is a healing journey. That's what this podcast is all about.
Yeah.
In terms of spirit, I know like you as a scientist and whatnot, even like when we first, and now I feel like you're very much like, yes, energy, vibration, right? All that is now something you really do believe in, even if it is from nature and Mother Earth. But I remember you were really not into that stuff when we first talked.
No, I judged it because that's
yeah.
the training I had and the people I surround myself with and the world I was in still does judge those things to a
Totally.
big extent. So yeah, I was never shut off to the ideas. I always listened. And in the 6 months that we worked together, I really did start opening up to those ideas. Maybe I didn't vocalize that because I would have been embarrassed because I thought it like discredited me as a researcher or scientist or whatever. But now, like a hawk flies by and I'm like, what is he saying?
Yeah, all the time.
You know, like, yeah.
And the universe, yeah.
Yeah. So I think there's messages everywhere. And I still want to look at the world kind of clinically in the way I do, but I don't think it's one or the other. And there have just been so many really cool coincidences or symbols or signs or things that just happen that are just so, I don't really care to explain them, whether or not it's coincidence or like divine timing. I have a lot more fun now believing that it's not all just random. And so like, I am just happier and more joyful and probably healthier for believing the latter. And it doesn't mean you can't all still be a scientist and do that. Some of the most amazing scientists are women that do kind of inject that like magical stuff into their work.
Oh, absolutely.
You know?
Even like Bruce Lipton or Greg Braden, like all these people are very much the ones that Joe Dispenza, right? They bridge science and spirit, right?
Yes.
Bringing them together. And it's just, I went to the conference in January. It was just mind blowing, like when they bring that science to it, because I also engineering background, right? So for me, I'm like, I love it when the two of those are married, because then it's like, okay, well, yes, this isn't just like woo woo and magic. It's actually, there's science behind it, right? And so
being
for me,
more feminine about stuff, I've noticed, especially because like earth-based themes, which have always been where my heart is, to describe a like ecosystem clinically or to like inject some more of that like feminine, beautiful energy, I've been able to do in my book because it's not like a peer-reviewed paper, it's a book. So I can use all sorts of descriptive words and feelings to talk about nature. And my editor's like, by far, you're the best writer when you're describing nature. And like, if that like can make people care more or connect more, like that's sort of my end goal.
It's so healing. Nature is absolutely the best medicine and healing that we have.
Yeah.
Truly.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I was watching something the other day, like those reels, and it was someone describing how humans are meant to be outside 85% of the day. And on a scale, the average human is out there 2 or 3%, which is insane, right? So it's like we're meant to be outdoors. We're meant to feel the ground and release all that energy through our body to Mother Earth. Yet that doesn't get talked about much.
And like people like with my chronic body pain, like people go, why do you take ibuprofen? I'm like, well, that would mean I would take ibuprofen every day, all day for years. Like that's not an option, right? And so like
solution.
Yeah. And so I would be like, well, I'm just going to go sit on this rock, or I'm going to go get in the ocean, or I'm going to go swim in this river, or I'm going to go lay on the grass. And I would just call it like my ibuprofen. And like, you can look into the, I guess, physics of like the energy exchange between you and the earth. And yes, like I think it is supported by some science, but at the end of the day, if like lying on a rock makes me feel better, then I'm going to do that.
Yeah, and it's like, then who cares what it's supported by? If it's making me
Yep.
feel good, I'm gonna do it, right?
Yep. And that's why we maybe shouldn't pave everything, you know?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Totally. So how do you feel like you've thrived from this incident and like the wins and gifts that came out of all of this?
I mean, it's like hands down the best and hardest thing in the world. Even trying to write about it, like I have like 90,000 words or whatever, and I still feel like I haven't grasped the brutality of what like Lyme has been. And I am not a complainer, and I am not like a victim type person, and I am really tough with pain. And it was like, there aren't the words to describe how horribly challenging it was, but it at the same time has been the most incredible thing that's ever happened to me. I mean, it has changed my life in every single way because it changed my outlook. And so the lens you see the world through, if that changes, everything changes. So thanks, Lyme.
Yeah. And I remember when I said one day you're going to be grateful to Lyme, and you were
Yeah.
like, what the F?
I know. It doesn't mean it's still brutal. Like it's still, like it's still hard.
Of course.
And it was the loudest wake up call because I was not getting the message, right? So I needed something very loud. So I was very good at focusing on like the important things like my job and accomplishing tasks. So it had to be as loud as Lyme.
Yeah.
And it's kind of crazy. I've had so many people be like, isn't it ironic? Like you got bit in nature, riding your horse, like nature,
Like your favorite thing since 10 years old, right?
Yeah. Like nature, like handed me this thing.
Oh, I just got goosebumps.
Yeah. Crazy, but like still hard, still brutal. Still.
Yeah. So what do you still like compared to, let's just say even 3 years ago when we were working together to now, are your symptoms, have they settled down to some extent?
Oh yeah.
They have. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I'm probably 80% back. I don't want to be back to the way I was, but I'm 80% of where I would like to be. I want to feel great. I love that quote. Like most people don't know how good we're meant to feel, right? So, but that's been 3.5 years of unrelenting nonstop work, physical and mental work. Some hours I feel better than ever, and some I'm definitely like limey type person. But like my blood tests say I still have a little bit of like active infection happening, but they're a lot better than they were, and I've cleared a lot. So, the blood tests, like that's for the scientific mind. I like that. It's validating to see the progress in the blood work. And then the symptoms, like, I mean, now when we were working together, it would like with the days we had a call, that was it. Like I could do our call. That was all I could do. And now I can, to me, a chill day is most people's like I do 9,000 things a day still, right? And, so I'm getting back to, and then I get excited that I can do 9,000 things a day. But yeah, I would say I'm 80% there.
Yeah.
We still have up and down.
I do feel like, because I know this is with me too.
Okay.
Again, like you, it's like, go, 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 got to do all the things. And then all of a sudden, like something will happen with my body where it's like, I'm really tired. And literally to the point where I just have to lay down. So I wonder with you, like if some of the Lyme symptoms, when they come back, it's because you've been go, 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 go. And all of a sudden, like, hello, I'm still here.
Yep.
Rest, relax, right? Slow down. And so like, I know that's for me. And then the next day I'm like, ooh, I'm back to my energetic self again. Right.
Yeah.
So I'm just like,
and it keeps me on check today. Like I'm thankful for Lyme. I'm like, thanks, Lyme. Like if I was 100, if I'd been healed in 3 months, like I had planned, I would not have Like I've already done the sauna today. I've done my stretching today. I did my like gratitude, all the things, which the narrative in my head still thinks a lot of those are a waste of time because those are hardcore embedded beliefs.
Yeah.
But like thanks for Lyme for making me still show up to do those things.
Yeah.
It's motivating because the pain is still there if I, to run, like you said, to be like, hi,
Yeah.
please do your things. Like, please take 2 hours today for yourself of
Yeah.
22 hours.
Yep. Self-care. It's like so crucial. And again, like you said, the society rewards go-getters and being all productive and does not reward those that take that time to just be. More so nowadays, more so, I mean, than ever, for sure, right?
Yes.
And it still isn't as rewarded. It's more looked at as like, oh, that person's just lazy, rather than looking at as like, that person's actually just taking care of what they need to, like self-care, when they can't push themselves any further before their body's going to force them to shut down.
Yeah.
So.
Yes. Yeah. It's like sort of like a salmon upstream a little bit, but then you start surrounding yourself with people that, you change who you're around. I haven't done that really, but I've just added new people to my sort of like circle and been people that don't, that are good with doing a yoga class and not thinking it's a waste of time. So that's like who you surround yourself with, right? Really, obviously, is one of the most important things in the world. People that weren't conditioned at a young age to think that you must do 50,000 things a day to be worthy and valuable.
Exactly. Like from the external validation is what it comes down to, versus like, no, I am valuable for being the unique self that I am, and no one else in the world is me. Right.
I know. And like those coping mechanisms that you like, it's so crazy how embedded they are and how much work you can put in. And they're just, it's like part of your DNA, it feels like, and at some point.
No, absolutely. Absolutely.
So yay, neuropathy. No, not neuropathy, neuroplasticity. I'm like, okay, we can change these things.
Yes, we can. Yes, we can. I love
that's like the Joe Dispenza stuff, right? I'm like, okay.
Bruce Lipton too. He's really big
okay.
on neuroplasticity. A lot of them, because it's all about the subconscious mind. And so it's like, and I feel like I started working with Psych-K after me and you were done.
Did, yeah.
Which is all
I follow your journey online still about that, but yeah.
But yeah, so it's all about the subconscious mind and reprogramming it using neuroplasticity, which is backed by neuroscience, which is what makes me very happy. Because again, I too like the science aspect of things. So, well, Alayna, if you were to share one tip or one thing that you really feel like would make the difference for someone going through something that you're going through, and would just have them really change their life in any way, what
like for a Lyme type, maybe someone going through Lyme?
Yeah, through Lyme or any really, I believe, like, yes, Lyme or any real dis-ease, right? Anything that someone's like, it's impacting their physical being, like a physical symptom. But yeah, it could be Lyme, whatever that looks like.
It's something that I now know. It's the saying, like, what happened, it's not what happens to you, it happens for you. And I understand at the time when you're very sick, that can be super, I would have taken it as like invalidating and almost like rude. If you had just come out to me and been like, this is happening for you, not to you, I would have been like, you're belittling my experience. And so I am aware that that can be received like that, because health challenges, like you and I know, like when your health is gone, there is nothing. I mean, it, like I did never want to end my life, but there were days where I was like, if it ended, it's like the best has already come and gone. I guess that's like passive suicide or whatever you call it, where I was just like, man, like what's the point at this, So to focus on that the worst thing can be happening. And it really is, whatever you call it, this universe, whatever it is, conspiring in your best interest It's just like beyond your logical understanding at the time. And I'm only saying this because I've lived that. I would have told you to shut up. If you would have worded it a lot more gently like that to me. And I think like there's just people just word it differently. Whoever's, people who've been through tragedy, people lose children, people go through like horrifying things.
Mm-hmm.
And somehow see it as for their greater good or whatever it is.
Highest good, yeah.
I would have smacked you through the screen saying this to me when I was stuck in bed all day, every day. But it started to shift for me when I really changed what I was digesting, who I spoke to. Did I focus on people like you? What was like the content I was taking in? Like 100% ban on the news. Like,
oh, yes.
and eventually what I surrounded myself with, the practices I worked on, all of the like excavating, like I always think like doing the meditations and breath work, like pulling out all the junk, those beliefs start to change. But I understand you can't just like change the way you feel about Lyme. Like to say, believe it's good for you. You can't just sit there and do that. Like it doesn't work like that. It took years of action to change the way I feel about Lyme. And so that is as important as taking your medicine, because take your medicine, obviously, for whatever ailment you have. And the commitment to the mindset, it's just the commitment to the mindset. I think it's non-negotiable.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like you, having been through something that was risking your life, like it's really powerful when you say that too, because you had like people aren't like dying left, right, and center from Lyme, but people die from brain cancer. And so, yeah, I think it's powerful when someone like me says it. And it's like extraordinarily powerful when someone like you says that, because you were faced with your own mortality. Like most people are not faced with that.
Yeah. When you face death, it's like, okay.
Yeah.
And while you're in it, like that's one thing that, while you were in it, while I was in it, I wasn't like sitting there going through all the crap and being like, oh my God, this is the best thing that happened to me, right?
No.
It's always after the fact. And then it's always after you've gone, like you said, after you've done all the actions, all the work. And then you look back in hindsight and you're like, oh, wow, I like this new me. This was a rebirth, right?
In the face of it, like your mind is screaming at you to not do this work.
Yeah.
Or people like, you cold plunge all the time. Like, how do you like it? I'm like, no, I'm freezing. This is like, it's just as cold for me as it is for you.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, like in the face of my mind screaming at me to be productive, getting comfortable, being uncomfortable. Like,
yes,
for me, sitting on the couch and like just resting is very, very hard, but being willing to sit through that discomfort.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh, it's so hard. Like no one has ever told
now,
like,
is it gotten easier for you? Or
yes.
Okay.
Oh yeah. And over the years, like I have retrained the way I think about things. I don't have to actively think like things are happening for me now. I know things are happening for me. Before I had to kind of like tell myself that.
Well,
and like half my brain was like,
so yay for subconscious mind being reprogrammed,
they're
right?
like, she's lost it. Like she's yeah. So it's it's a tough one. It's very, very difficult. It's very difficult. But I still, right, even today, like I have a bit of vertigo right now. And I'm still grateful for Lyme.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, again, like there's times where same, I'll have a headache and the very first thought that goes, I'm like, uh-oh. And then I'm like, okay, that's just like the very first thought that comes. And I feel like we've talked about like the 17-second, like get out of it real quick. And so I'm like, no, that's just what my brain does to protect me and blah, blah, blah. Right. And then it's like, oh yeah, that was nothing. And of course you're going to go through things like that and you can still be grateful. So it's like, it's not like an either or. It's still like, hey, yes, because it was the toughest thing in my life, it was also the most rewarding.
Yeah. What is what the messaging we get from people who have children who have like
Exactly.
what we're told all the time. I just thought about if I had to modify my answer, because what the answer I gave you was not, it's a little textbook, but the one thing I think I could tell people that isn't so textbook is that I looked to the natural world as like an extreme, like evidence for healing, because I knew as a biologist how programmed for recovery and resiliency ecosystems are, and we are nature. And so I would just be like, nature is so incredibly able to recover from stuff that we really like, the things we put her through. And so I just made that connection. I am nature. Nature always heals given the chance. I can heal. That came later, but like just for people really sick to lodge that in your nature always heals given the time and conditions.
Absolutely.
Just say that to yourself over and over again.
And get outside into nature.
Oh yeah. I mean, I use nature in two ways to heal, like metaphorically as like like a North Star, like like wetlands that just like should not recover or come back and like function again. So that was more like metaphorical or like a literal example, but then I used it literally by grounding myself and getting in cold water. And like, I love being in nature. I didn't have to force that, but like, the healing, the nervous system benefits of being in wild spaces. We understand that.
Yeah.
Good for you. It's good for you to have a lower heart rate.
Yes.
Yeah. So that would be like my more advanced answer, which came years later, which you would think came earlier because of my background, but that is like the most different answer that I would have loved to hear years ago. That just is like the merging of my background and my two kind of worlds, which is really like what I'm the most excited about in the book, because Lyme tends to pit people against nature because it's born of,
because you get it in nature.
Yeah.
So, but that's full circle. I love that. You like, I love that you shared that.
Oh, I like roll around in the sage scrub. I'm like, oh man, it's gonna be triggering for people.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, do you believe that you are embracing life as a healing journey?
Oh, it's like my identity now, it redirected the whole trajectory of my entire life. So yeah.
And you now have like a whole Instagram dedicated to just,
I know. I feel like you're just like, I knew it. Like,
yes. And I just remember it was so difficult for you to even just share one little post. Do you remember?
Well, I didn't tell my family for
I know. It was like, I mean, look at you.
I didn't mention it. Did you navigate that with me?
Yeah. Oh,
yeah.
Oh,
yeah. Like I think I was dissociating.
We had multiple conversations on how to have the conversation.
Oh my God, that is so
with your mom. And then, it was specific.
I know you probably were like, have you called yet? I was probably like, no, I'm making breakfast. Yeah. That was surreal. So yes, told my family months in and that's stuff I've examined through my childhood. Why does someone not want to like that? That's you had a good like poker face, but like my doctor, when I told her, for example, did not have a poker face. She was like, how are your family supporting you? And I was like, oh no, I'm not going to bother them with this. Like, absolutely not. She was just like, what? It was COVID. I could hide it. No one knew. They're all in Canada. Yeah, so that was crazy. You navigated that with me. And then I told my friends a few months later, a select few, maybe 5. Told my sister was instrumental. She was amazing because a year and a half later, I was in Canada and she was like, have you thought about posting something on Instagram? Like that you were like, your life has changed? And she helped me put a little reel together.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I was posting it sitting on her couch and she was like my biggest cheerleader. my hand, this is not an exaggeration. My hand was shaking so bad that my phone did the, like, I think you're having a seizure thing. Should I call 911? Like I didn't know that was an option on iPhones. If you shake hard enough, your phone thinks you're having a seizure. And that's how hard I was shaking, just posting a video saying like, I got Lyme. So yeah, she didn't want to tell anyone.
No, yep. What was her Mercedes? I remember Mercedes. For those that are listening,
Oh my God,
we name
Mercedes.
our egos, and Alayna's ego's name is Mercedes.
You are remarkable that you remember that. That is so amazing. Yeah, she was.
Mine's evolved. Remember, I don't know if you remember, I used to say my ego was Ursula.
Yep, I knew that.
Yeah. Now it's the Hulk. So she's evolved a little bit. She's not as crazy, but she can
She sounds physical. That's amazing.
But oh my gosh, this has been amazing. So please share with everyone how people can find you, and learn more about your story or reach out to you.
Like you said, I am just so I shifted from, I only had a personal Instagram that I showed, like, it was so not a thing. And so then I started on my own like Lyme Instagram, which is just my name, my Alayna BELLQUIST. I don't know that there are any other Alayna BELLQUIST in the world. So it's like super easy to find. And it is like 100% Lyme focused and healing focused and things like that. And then, I'm building a website right now that should be ready in like a week or two.
Awesome.
And then I've been hosting online Zoom calls with, I'd say 90% of the people on the call have Lyme or have a child with Lyme or someone, they're being touched by Lyme in some way. And there's usually like 20 of us on the call, and I lead the group, and it's just information sharing and you know, how to navigate this illness. With people that have come out the other side, or like I constantly say, if I had found me 3 years ago to hold my hand through the illness part, it would have been amazing. So, so we do that. I'm building a more of like a structured course right now, because I've taught, before and guest lectured at university level and stuff. And I really do like that. So I'm building like a more structured course for people. And it applies not just to Lyme, because Lyme, I think you can have like fibromyalgia, or you can have like multiple sclerosis, or you can have like crippling anxiety. A lot of the things, like all of the things that I speak to, I don't want to sit around and talk about which antibiotic I took. I'm not a medical professional. That's not my job. I don't want that to be my job. So the way I talk about healing really applies to any type. So, that will all be on my website, which will just be alaynabellquist.com. Super straightforward. Awesome. And then in a year, give or take, my book will be published, and then you can learn everything you want to know.
Yeah.
And so, it's just going to be, the book is like the ultimate ripping off of the Band-Aid of someone who didn't want to tell their parents to, here's like 400 pages or 250 pages, whatever it's going to be.
Of all you.
It's crazy. And there's a huge component of using the environment and the lessons for environmentalism and conservation. So there's meeting people. I met you randomly online.
Mm-hmm.
I used to totally judge this stuff. I want people to reach out to me because my life has been changed by people online that I've met that I would never have met just in my old world.
Yeah.
So when I say reach out, I genuinely mean it, reach out, because the people I've met online have changed my life in fundamental ways. So there'll just be more and more ways to get in touch with me. I'm still kind of lifting off the ground with this, but the website will be up in a couple weeks. So maybe even when this is posted.
That's so exciting. Yes.
Okay, cool. There.
Oh my gosh. I'm so amazed by the growth that you've had. The evolution of Alayna, it just makes me teary-eyed. It truly does. Because this is truly a new you.
Yeah.
Truly.
Wow.
So I'm so grateful that you came on this podcast to full circle, share your journey and just what's been going on in the last 3 years. Because I feel like we've been trying to also at one point get together and life.
Well, give yourself a pat on the back for being a vital, piece of this. Like I said, you were the first person who used the word like energy around me.
I remember the skeptical. And it's because I was that way. I know. Similar to you, I used to laugh at people that ever talked about this kind of stuff. I'd be like, okay, yeah, sure, and now I'm like, yeah, I see things, so.
Well, why do you think you were the first person? Like I could not have dove in there. You were the exact person at the exact time, and you had to happen to be through a health crisis.
Yeah.
Which, it's, as we know, now I look back and I'm like, wow, you were exactly the person I needed. So obviously 10 out of 10 for anyone who wants to work with you.
Oh, you're so sweet. Thank you. Yeah, it's like I always say, like divine timing, divine intervention. Sometimes it's beyond us and just the universe or whatever you believe in conspires, and it's like match, right? And look at where you are.
Thank you from the bottom of my heart. Yeah.
Of course. Thank you for joining and being a guest on Life is a Healing Journey with me today. And subscribe to not miss the next episode. Thank you for listening to Life is a Healing Journey podcast. You are here to peel and heal one layer at a time, to live your life to the fullest in the face of any circumstance, while embracing a life filled with love, joy, and peace. If you are in disharmony in any area of your life and truly desire to be in harmony and committed to elevating your health and well-being, I'm one click away. Find me at healingwithanuschka.com. And remember, that's Anuschka with a C. And if you like what you heard, please subscribe and share this podcast with your loved ones. Get your healing on. Until next time.